I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now.
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, all praise, and all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachak Wadash. The abundance to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations to the tabernacle of David, the hopeful elect, scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. So you see Nero, you know, he's now imposing more force. You know, he really, I believe this is just a ploy to distract from the mess that he's getting caught up in as far as this whole Epstein situation. So he has to, you know, divert attention, of course, virtual signal, you know, and act like, you know, there are these moral beings that
announcing
Salakia.
Historic act.
Yeah, Salakia. I hate when I get calls in the middle of my lessons. But anyway, you know, they trying to act like they're more moral, you know, as if these devils at the top, you know, they're not criminals themselves, you know. And with DC, you know, with the poverty, you know, the crime that goes on, he's trying to use that to mask his authoritarian control. All right. Now, this is the reason why I'm implementing this kind of force in the Capitol. All right. He may think that the fact that we have, you know, leaders from these other nations that are, you know, they have diplomatic relations with Babylon, when they have to come and do business, you know, with the president, and they come to DC and they see that, you know, a few blocks down, you know, you got a bunch of homeless people and crackheads, and, you know, there might be some crime going on, you know, a few miles away. You know, it's embarrassing. It's a bad look. I mean, that's not act like these nations don't already see the shame of this place, which the Lord said would happen, that he would lift up the skirts and show the nations thy nakedness and the kingdoms thy shame. They already know that, you know, this whore is run down. She's not that beautiful, delicate woman that she perpetrated herself to be. So right now he's utilizing this to implement more force. This is nothing but, like it says in Revelation 13 and 11, about that beast coming out of the earth, which represents America, having two horns like a lamb, which represents the two political parties, but spake as a dragon, and this is a form of that. So now he's going to put DC under federal control and deploy the National Guard over there. you know. So let me grab a scripture, because anything that this devil does, any type of solution he comes with, he always has to use his sword or force to try to solve it. Right now, if it was about solving crime, bringing the crime rate down, etc., then why not do that all across the country? So we know that it's bigger than that. There's definitely an agenda. All right, and pretty soon you're going to start to see more uproar and more outcry within the country, because this place is descending into chaos. More people out of work, the workforce is being affected. More people are idle. Poverty is starting to increase more. The price of everything is going up. And they're looking at the policies from their president, and all these policies are focused on the initiatives from the Zionists and what the globalists want. And he's prioritizing that over the well-being of his citizens. So what do you think that's going to lead to? It's going to lead to rebellion. Okay. So let me get this. Let's go to Psalm 17, because ultimately, him sending out them guards, they bear the sword. So they're gonna basically have authority, and they're gonna be out there policing the streets. All right. It might even be a part of this where brothers might be restricted to where they can't go to certain areas, within the city to go out there and teach. Who knows? But this devil, he's finding ways to crack down. All right. This is Psalm 17 and 13. It says, "Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword." And Esau has that ability through the sword. All right. He'll come out against you with force. Being his military, his troops. Like, for example, when you go back to when Jacob met up with Esau, and when he met up with Esau, right before he actually met up with him, he prayed that the Lord not deliver him into his hands. Is that Genesis 33? Let me see. It might be the previous chapter. Let me see. Yeah, this is Genesis 32 and 11, and it says, "Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother. Yeah, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword." All right, Esau, he lived by that sword. That was part of his blessing. So he has, military. He's always going to have military force. That's what puts him in power. That's what made him strong during the Greco-Roman Empire, and that's what makes him strong now. All right. It says, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children. All right. And when they came out to meet, that man came out with force. This is Genesis 32 and verse 3. It says, "And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother into the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks, and men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I might find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he came up to meet thee, and 400 men with him." Why are you showing up this deep to come to messengers sent by your own brother? You know, what you got to show up 400 deep for? So Esau, he always has that mentality. All right. So it's not a shocker that, you know, Esau always wants to implement that type of power, you know, through military force or the sword. So he's sending the sword out in DC. All right. He's going to federalize them, have the National Guard out there. All right. So let me go to the article. And it's this from NBC. Washington says Trump considering deploying up to 1,000 National Guard troops to DC. And we know who's the primary target of this whole agenda. He's saying that, hey, you don't want to get raped, you don't want to get mugged, you don't want to get robbed and killed, then allow me to implement this force. We know that they liken this or make responsible the citizens, which are primarily the Jakes, the ones that are poor. It's mainly Jake over there. Okay? And they're the ones, of course, just like in every other major city. They're responsible for the homicides and the thefts, robberies, so on and so forth. So this is really geared towards you tribes that are over there. That's what this is about. It's aimed right at the poor of the Lord's people. All right, it says President Donald Trump is considering deploying up to 1,000 National Guard troops to DC and could make the announcement as early as Monday, one defense official and 2 U.S. officials confirmed on Sunday night. Trump has vowed to stop violent crime in DC and posted on Truth Social multiple times, expressing frustration with crime and homelessness in the capital. And mind you, you know, they're already directing a policy to basically criminalize homelessness. So they're in the process of trying to renovate this society. All right, basically trying to clean up the whore, even though she's in her terminal stage. She's already run down. The skirts have already been lifted. And it's because of your own doing, all right? The previous president, and y'all throw the alley-oops to each other. And you deteriorating your own country, all while also enforcing more force, more legislation, more totalitarian control. And it's starting to remind me of that movie Civil War. If you remember back in that movie, that president, you know, he was a fascist, authoritarian individual. You know, he wanted to seize more and more authoritative power. So he was cracking down on journalists. He was cracking down on protesters, even ordering strikes on like straight up drone strikes on protesters. So it became a war zone, and the people were fighting against the establishment, and that's where your Civil War came from. And by the time they got to DC, you got to see how barricaded it was, very fortified. You know, bullet holes everywhere. So it's starting to look down the line of that aspect. All right, the more he gets authoritative in his policies, the more he start cracking down on stuff, because he's militarizing everything. All right, ICE, we already saw what they've been doing with ICE. He's going to implement more facilities and basically encampments to start gathering people. He keeps talking about crime, criminals, bad people. And it's mainly our people that's being gathered, you know? It's mainly our people that's being criminalized. And it tells you that in Psalms that the eyes are set privily against the poor, and that's primarily you tribes, starting with the so-called Negro. It is Psalm 10:8. It says, "He setteth in the lurking places of the villages, in the secret places doeth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privately set against the poor." And they're constantly plotting, constantly. They set prayer. They set snares privily. They say, "Who shall see him?" It says, "He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doeth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net." All right. So that's a way that he's gonna try to, crack down upon you tribes, and further bring you into this system. And if you don't want to get down with this system, it'll already be set in place. This whole totalitarian fascist infrastructure is already being set in place, where you're going to be closely monitored. You're going to be surveilled. You're going to be under complete military force. Eventually, martial law, where you won't be able to go from one city to the next without running into checkpoints. All right. So this is all part of the beginning of that. It says Trump has vowed to stop crime in D.C. and posted on Truth Social multiple times expressing frustration with crime and homelessness in the capital, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says violent crime is down in the city. Data from the Department of Justice and D.C. police also show violent crime is down. So if they have statistical data that shows that it's not as bad as he's fabricating it to be, then what is it really all about? All right. And what he's trying to do, we're going to see it all across the country at some point, especially when there's more unrest, when there's more uproars from the people due to the living conditions. It's going to be that sedition that's going to happen. So he's militarizing everything. He wants, plenty of force out there. All right. It says the number of National Guard's members to be assigned is still in flux, officials said, and most of the troops will likely be pulled from the D.C. National Guard. The officials clarified that the decision is not final and no orders have been signed. All right, but we're going to see. Knowing Trump, he usually speaks it and then it does get signed into law. He did a lot, coming upon his second term. Okay. And let me grab this. It is Psalm 94:20. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the souls of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood." They looking for, that reason. All right, and they know that, the servants, the prophets, we're very vocal. What we do is considered an act of rebellion, treason. So it's only a matter of time before those policies starts to be directed at us. Cracking down on these cities, putting more force there, and they're gonna make it hard for you to be able to, exercise your First Amendment right, which is freedom of speech. Because it's gonna be illegal to speak against the status quo. All these mass shootings that they've been having, which I believe some of them are POs being operated, just so they can work on your First and Second Amendment. They want to take you away from that. And not that it ever applied to us, the tribes, but we know we know the direction that they're heading in. I mean, straight up like 1984, man, by George Orwell. So yeah, man, that fierce king, man, that cruel Lord he spoke of in Isaiah 19. He's speaking as that dragon, man. All right, and let me get that in 2nd Esdras. Because when you put all these troops in a city, they're going to be right at your border points, and they're going to be stopping and asking you about your whereabouts, who you are, your identification. What business do you have, in this area? And they're going to be snatching up and gathering up a lot of these people that you see homeless. So it's basically war on the poor right now. So let me get 2nd Esdras 15. And it says 2nd Esdras 15, and the point is at 17. I'll start at 14. It says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be a sedition among men, and invading one another. And that's going straight into civil war, right? They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right, and that's why, like in that movie Civil War, DC was straight up barricaded. Even the president, he was barricaded in the White House, because it was a straight war zone, man. People were basically fighting against the authoritarianism of that president. All right. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. You could think of martial law. A bunch of troops at these different city borders, asking people for their IDs, etc. Because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And that's when we're gonna be heading right into the time of Jacob's trouble, when it gets to that point. All right, when it's not gonna be safe in them streets. All right. So this devil, he's definitely showing the horns, man. Okay. So I just wanted to report that, and Lord willing, y'all were edified. Just keep our eyes open and stay circumspect. And also Romans 13, don't resist the ordinance, meaning don't fight against the government. The Lord's going to be the one that's going to deliver us out of this. So with that, call Lord Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, and to the next one, Shalom.